Paul Morphy is one of the most brilliant chess players to ever live, an attacking genius. Now, in an opera house in Paris in 1858, he played against two noblemen who consulted each other with the black pieces. His opponents were Duke Karl II of Brunswick and some French aristocrat. Now, you're going to see this pretty incredible game, and many consider it to be one of the most famous chess games of all time, if not the most famous. Get ready for this incredible game. This is one of my favorite attacking chess games because Morphy could have just stayed back, won material, and won the game in a later fashion. However, instead he decided to immediately attack his opponent viciously, and that's also why I memorized this game, because it is quite impressive. Now, we start with the Pierce defense. Now, why is this opening terrible, at least this variation? Well, after pawn takes, and a queen trade, black can't castle and is worse. So, Morphy could have gone into this and been better. However, in his attacking style, he just develops a piece instead. Now, the bishop comes out to pin the knight. This is, again, a pretty bad move because if Morphy just decides to take this pawn, black takes back, another queen trade, this pawn is lost, and black is worse. So Morphy does decide to go for pawn takes. Now, as I just showed, taking this pawn would be bad because black would end up losing a pawn after a queen trade. So, what does black do? Black says, okay, well that's bad, so let me just take this knight instead. Okay, bishop takes knight, queen takes bishop, and pawn takes pawn. This seems fine for black, right? Wrong. Bishop to c4, attacking the f7 pawn viciously. You do not want to lose this game immediately to scholar's mate. So, naturally, black decides to just defend with knight to f6, right? There's nothing wrong with this, except there is something terribly wrong with this. Queen to b3 attacking the f7 pawn and the b7 pawn, and you cannot defend both. Now, what black perhaps could have tried to do was try to maybe protect like this or protect like this. The real issue with these moves is that after just simply developing your knight, you have threats like this potentially, and it's kind of hard for black to develop his pieces. He's kind of passive, although this perhaps would have been much better than the move that ended up being played, because this fork of pawns is really hard to defend against. So what does black do? Does black decide to protect material, or does black decide to protect their king? Yeah, black probably made the right choice by moving queen to e7, because you don't want to lose your king. That would be really bad. So what does Morphy do? Does Morphy immediately get indulged in material gain and just take the pawn? No, he instead develops his knight. Now, the best move here isn't even to take the pawn, so Morphy was correct in not taking the pawn. However, the best move here is bishop to f7 check, sacrificing your bishop so you can come up here and forcefully win this rook. Now, you may be asking, why not just keep the bishop, why not just keep the bishop and try to win the rook like this? Well, there's queen to b4 check, and after the queen's trade, yes, white is up a pawn and better, but not by a ton, and Morphy could do better than this. So what Morphy decides to do instead of going for this variation where you sack the bishop, instead of this variation where you win a pawn, he simply develops a piece, again trying to create a potential attack. Now black here doesn't have a lot of options, but they decide to go c6. This is a pretty good move because you're just defending the pawn on b7, and it seems like you're doing okay. Now Morphy develops his other piece. If you look at this position, black's pieces are really bad. They're pinned, they're not active, and Morphy's pieces, he has 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces that are very active in the position, and after he castles long, he's going to have 5 pieces really active in the position. So he's prime for a attack. Now, black makes perhaps the biggest mistake of the game, b5. Now, this may not seem like a bad decision, but they're practically begging Morphy to sacrifice his knight here. Now, Morphy decides to go knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes check, and he forces black to defend with this knight. This knight can't block because the queen will be lost, so the knight has to block like this. After long castles, the rook and the bishop attack, so naturally black just defends with his rook, right? There's nothing wrong with this. Unfortunately, after rook takes the knight, again, you cannot take like this because the queen is hit. The rook is forced to take back and is pinned. Now, I'm sure a bunch of beginners would just love to just immediately take this,
But Morphy is no beginner, so he plays rook to d1, pinning the rook further and putting pressure. The nobleman's final mistake is queen to e6. Why is this absolutely terrible? Well, after bishop takes d7 check, you don't want to take with the queen because you'll just lose that, right? So naturally, they take with the knight. However, I'm sure many of you can see this pretty awesome checkmate into. If you don't see it, pause it, solve it yourself, and then I'm going to show you right now. The move is queen to b8 check, sacrificing your queen. You force the knight to take, and with your only two remaining pieces, at least besides your pawn and your king, you checkmate the black king. This is why I love the opera game. Morphy sacrificed almost every single one of his pieces just to checkmate the king, which never even moved. Thank you for watching this video, and please subscribe for more videos like this one.